There's a quiet consequence of failed routines that almost no one talks about. It's not the clutter or the missed workouts or the abandoned meal prep containers. It's the loss of self-trust. Every time you start a new habit with good intentions and it slowly slips away, your brain makes a tiny mental note. We didn't follow through. One time doesn't matter, but dozens of them, hundreds of them over the years, they start shaping your identity. You begin predicting your own inconsistency before you even start. And that prediction, that sense of, I don't trust myself to stick with it, is one of the things that makes habit change feel so heavy. Not necessarily the habit itself, but the fear of repeating the cycle. The good news is that self-trust doesn't need to be rebuilt through intensity or discipline. It can be rebuilt through tiny, reliable wins that prove to your brain we can follow through and we are. Today I'm going to show you how to rebuild that kind of self-trust using small, science-backed habits that are designed to stick. In case you're new here, I'm Dr. Kelly Cosgrove, a habit expert and professional organizer who helps overwhelmed people create routines that actually stick using science-backed strategies and home organization. All right, let's get started. Self-trust is one of the most underrated foundations of habit formation. It's not confidence, it's not motivation, it's not willpower. Self-trust is the belief that you'll do what you say you'll do. And your brain builds or loses that belief through patterns. If the pattern is set a goal, pursue it for a short time, get overwhelmed, fall off, and start again later, your brain learns we can't rely on our promises. This is not a character flaw, it's conditioning. Your brain learns from outcomes, not intentions. When that trust breaks down, you experience things like overthinking before starting, procrastination, dread about certain habits, and less excitement about the possibility of change. And once that erosion happens, even working towards the simplest habits feels heavy, not because the habit is hard necessarily, but because the relationship with yourself has become shaky. This is where tiny habits come in. They are really effective at building the self-trust that's been lost after many failed attempts at behavior change. Let's talk about why they work. Tiny habits shrink the gap between intention and action. Tiny habits are low friction, they require minimal effort, and they're reliable even on bad days. Tiny habits create the most important pattern your brain needs to see. When I say I'll do something, I actually do it. And that evidence is what starts to rewrite your identity. Instead of, I never stick with things, your brain begins learning, actually, I'm someone who follows through. Tiny habits rebuild self-efficacy, identity, internal credibility, momentum, realistic confidence, and trust in your future self. And once that trust is restored, bigger habits start to feel doable again, without forcing anything. To rebuild trust quickly and sustainably, your tiny habits should meet these criteria. Number 1, they must be specific. Your brain cannot trust vague promises. Vague promises include things like, I'll be healthier, I'll start organizing, or I'll walk more. Specific tiny habits are things like, I'll chop one vegetable after lunch, I'll read one sentence of my book when I get in bed, or I'll put away one item when I walk in the door. Specificity reduces ambiguity, and ambiguity is one of the biggest causes of inconsistency. Number 2, they must be small enough to succeed on your worst day. If it requires motivation, it's too big. If it requires planning, it's too big. If it requires willpower, it's too big. Your tiny habit should pass this test. Could I do this on a day when I'm exhausted, overwhelmed, stressed, and running behind? If yes, perfect. If not, shrink it. Number 3, they should be paired with a stable cue. You're not creating a habit out of thin air. You're attaching it to something you already do. Here are some examples. After brushing your teeth, floss one tooth. After making coffee, wipe down one section of the counter. After getting into bed, read one sentence of your book. After closing the fridge, take a sip of water. Attaching these small actions to something you already do takes a lot of the thought out of building the new habit. Now let's talk about what it feels like when you start rebuilding self-trust. The early signs are subtle. Most people expect a dramatic shift, but what you actually feel is less resistance, less dread, fewer, maybe tomorrow moments, calmer decision-making, fewer overly ambitious plans, and more groundedness. You'll notice you don't negotiate with yourself as much. You don't overpromise, you don't panic plan, you don't expect a future version of yourself to magically have boundless energy. You become someone who makes realistic choices, honors your actual bandwidth, follows through consistently, and trusts your own patterns again. And that is the foundation of sustainable habit change. So let's go over a step-by-step plan to rebuild self-trust. Step 1, choose one area of your life, just one. Some examples might include bedtime, your morning routine, kitchen flow, movement, hydration, home maintenance, or mental clarity. You're choosing a focus for your rebuild efforts. Step 2. Pick one tiny habit within that area. Some examples might be to put on walking shoes, stretch for 10 seconds, wash one dish, put 2 items away, fill up a water glass, wipe a single surface, write one line in your journal, or chop one vegetable. Step 3. Attach it to a stable cue. Cues might include brushing your teeth, making coffee, finishing a meal, sitting at your desk, opening the fridge, getting in bed, or starting your car. The cue becomes the reminder so you don't have to rely on memory or motivation. Step 4. Track your progress. Use a habit tracker that makes it as easy as possible to track your progress, whether it's a physical calendar where you cross off days or a habit tracking app on your phone. Tracking your tiny habit gives you clean, simple evidence. I said I'd do it, and I did. A word of caution though, make sure not to put too much pressure on building a streak. If you miss a day here or there, that's okay, and it doesn't mean you have to start over. It's just an opportunity to learn what works and what doesn't when you're building a habit, which is really useful information to have, especially once you start building bigger habits later on. So start today with the tiny habit you've chosen and stick with it for the next 30 days. 30 days of tiny habits can completely shift your relationship with yourself. When you repeatedly follow through on small, doable actions, your brain starts collecting evidence that you're someone who keeps promises to yourself. The result is more internal calm, less negotiation, simpler routines, and grounded confidence that doesn't depend on motivation. After a month of tiny wins, you won't just feel more organized or consistent, you'll genuinely trust yourself again. And that identity shift is what makes bigger habits finally stick. If you found this video helpful, check out my recent video on the right way to set goals based on behavioral science. It has a lot of great content for you to keep in mind as you're setting goals for your tiny habits, as well as your bigger habits once you've reestablished your self-trust. I'll link the video here on the screen and in the description below.